Gold League Season 1. I'm your host, Christian Toma. To my left is David Williams. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and YouTube, /WGLNA. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter @WGLNA.
While you're there on Twitter, check out our question of the day, which is, which map are you most excited to see played this season? Now, we've previously answered. We want to hear yours. In case you're wondering, mine was Himmelsdorf.
And mine was Ghost Town. Well, hey, we just told them. And remember, when you respond, use that hashtag WGLNA to get your feed up in front of our administrators. Well, we are just coming off an amazing game where Dryness pulled a sweet move up on the hill on steps against Game Over. Simp taking that 5-1. And up next, we have High Woltage versus Noble. Now, David, High Woltage in the qualifiers was your favorite. They were the team that you liked the most. But in the predictions, you were going to give this one to Noble. So tell me kind of what the mentality behind that pick was.
I flipped a coin, and it said Noble on the side that was facing up, so I just went with it.
Great.
Now, realistically, High Woltage has some incredible talent, and we'll know whether they're ready or not by this set.
Okay.
But Noble is a put-together team. They've been around for a while. They've had some changes coming out. I believe Comps is now their team captain over Ray Martin. We'll find out if that is a positive change for them or not, but they've picked up some additional talent. I've played with several people on that team in one way or another, and they have a lot of talent as well. Both teams are chock full of all-stars. One team is newer than the other one, and that's really what it came down to. Theoretically, Noble should win, and Noble has more on the line than High Voltage does. High Voltage can lose, and it's like, whatever, we're new.
Sure.
We'll shake it out. But if Noble loses, it's going to be a big deal.
Well, now, you were to explain to me during the qualifiers the idea when you were playing in the pro sets, going against a team that was lower than you. There was like this, oh man, if we lose, it's heavy. It's a mind game almost in and of itself. How do you kind of shake yourself out of that, or do you just kind of accept it and say, no, we're not going to lose, and just make that definitive call?
Yeah, some matches it's easier to shake than others, but there is. For me, it was more like, say we started out on a bad game, and we lost one. That's when it was like, oh man, if we lose to these guys, it's going to be a big problem. But I believe we've got rosters to check out here. We see some of those changes coming out.
Absolutely.
As you can see, High Voltage has some notable people: Tofu Smurf, Blue Boys Captain Anfield, Heavy 20, Wall Hacks, Angry White Guy, Ant, Ox Matheson, Fedge. Didn't get enough time to go through Noble, but a lot of the same people you're used to. Plus, I believe they picked up Akula from Lamp, which is hands down like the biggest part of their roster change. Akula is a great player, and we'll see if he can jive with the rest of the team.
And we'll see if that bodes well for High Voltage and Noble. Ladies and gentlemen, to our third match of the night. We're going to start us out on Himmelsdorf. Let's see, David, what do we got for tanks?
High Voltage rolling out with an three AMX 5100s, 3 IS3s, and an AMX 12T. We've seen that before, and I believe we saw it from Element. Undoubtedly, these two teams have been practicing. Much respect between those people, so not surprising to see similar lineups. Noble, again, we're seeing something we've already seen before, a 110, 2 5100s, 3 IS3s, and a T37. This should be interesting.
Now, walk me through what is going through High Voltage's mind, as it looks like they're putting an extreme amount of precedence on this hill.
They are indeed, Christian. They're going to come up and probably check out some of these positions to look down into the courtyard area. The way that they're actually moving through this, I don't know if you guys can see, the way they're moving through this general area on the top of the hill is classic. It's a way to move to protect yourself on the way in, so that just in case, and I'm not really entirely sure what High Voltage is worried about, because it's virtually impossible for Noble to get there by now, but they seem to be concerned that Noble is going to attack them on the hill, or they're waiting for a scout to come up here. Something extremely confusing to me and strange is happening. I don't see why a defense would go up the hill. Perhaps they've practiced in the past, and it's something Noble has done to them, because it's not an immediately obvious thing, but it's something that High Voltage seems to be concerned about.
Yeah, with all those members up there, it does seem like they are worried about something indeed. Angry White Guy by himself down here, but the K2 line looks like he's going to go just kind of run the railroad tracks. Seems like he might go and meet Comps from Noble. Good positioning there, just kind of wait up to make sure there is no flank. What is Angry White Guy's main objective? Is it just to get some spots to see any information of what Noble is doing?
Yes, he's trying to find where Noble is. I believe the rest of his team is holding on the hill, just in a defensive formation, just in case. I guess they're not super concerned, but they're playing with discipline, so they're prepared for any eventual circumstance. I mean, there's a certain possibility that Noble will push up 1 or maybe 2 tanks up there, and if they do, High Voltage will absolutely dominate them. But it looks like High Voltage is starting to roll out off the south side of the hill now that they've established. This is starting to make a lot more sense, Christian. Now that they've established that Noble is not in the west, they can infer that Noble's in the north, and that they totally do not want to roll down the 0 line. That's what they're waiting for.
That is quite smart.
They're sitting there just in, like I said, a defensive position out of discipline and habit. It may seem a little bit ridiculous at first that they would be concerned about that kind of thing, but good habits keep you alive. So now that they know that Noble is hard in the north, they're just going to push across the bottom and enact some sort of Western play that they obviously have had prepared. I am extremely interested to see where this is going.
Yeah, it seems like almost like they've reset themselves, but talking about the discipline plays as a team, not just barreling over that 0 line, but going up on the hill and waiting 2 to 3, actually 3 minutes, 2 minutes before heading down and actually just retracing their steps, using the information that they gathered instead of just kind of YOLOing it out there. It's really exciting to see what these teams have in store. Now all of them together with Wk1, all 7 of High Voltage on this western side on the 1 line. Let's see if they make a push up here. Noble just hasn't quite responded. They're in their same positions. We have a shot from Comps out. Not sure if that was blind fire, if anyone was spotted, but no damage done there. Let's see if Comps is going to be safe where he's at. If he gets some spots, this will be, he does. Wallhacks and Oxmath is now spotted for High Voltage. Let's see if Noble can react to this. It does seem like they're moving. Comps get a little bit of shot off, and they obviously know where he is, but they continue to go. Those IS-3s, beefy, just pushing right up, and Comps might be in some trouble here.
Noble definitely knows what they're doing. They're coming back. They've already got pre-planned positions. It's all going to matter whether High Voltage can get the tanks out that they want to get in this period of time. Comp's going down really quickly. He probably should have gotten out there faster, but he didn't have much of an option as the IS-3s are pushing down the other side. He was just stuck where he was from the instant that he was discovered. A lot of action going to come out with these IS-3s in the top corner, going directly against with heavy 20 and Blue Boys hanging back to make sure they don't get flanked.
A little bit of cap.
It's about to kick off here, Christian.
A little bit of cap pressure there as we do have it down to 88. Not much, but like you said, these ISOs coming through. Good damage right through this hangar into Militant, taking more than 108 damage. He's on the reload, getting some shots back on High Voltage, but he needs to get out of there. 330. He's going to start backing out. It looks like he's just going to try to get as many shots as he can. Akula and Canadian Impact looks like they're going to try to come around, like you said, Anger White Guy right in the back. These 3 IS-3s being very menacing. Germ pushing up. This might explode very quickly. Going to check this corner. Oxmathis goes ahead and spots Germ. Tofu sort of off spot, and Anfield getting absolutely torn down to half health. Good crossfire coming out for Noble here. The Wallhacks taking some damage also in return. Militant finding a good little corner. Finally, who's not just barreling back on that 1 line. Getting a good reset on Igor White Guy. A massive amount of damage coming through. Germ not quite taking as much as he gave, and Noble sitting there, but Militant picking off Anger White Guy. What a great pick out for Noble.
Oh, right there. Big problem for High Voltage. Tofu Smurf is sitting in the back. He is waiting for Commander J, or really whoever is going to initiate that flank. He's preventing Akula and Canadian Impact from coming around that corner, which is why those 2 IS-3s haven't moved up. Commander J, trying to perform a cheeky little flank, knows that Tofu Smurf is there now. He's got some additional angles on Heavy 20 and Blue Boys, or more Heavy 20 than Blue Boys at the moment. And very evenly keeled play coming out of Noble, and that is a good thing.
Absolutely. I mean, it looks like you're saying, the reason it's so good for Noble being on defense is now High Voltage only has 1 minute to either cap or destroy all the tanks. So let's say they're going to turn it on. Tofu Smurf and Commander J going back and forth. Commander J getting around the corner, doing a lot more Tofu Smurf than he is getting. And now with only 48 seconds in the battle, it seems as High Voltage need to go ahead and start finding these fights and taking down Noble, or they're not going to be in a pretty situation, but being almost over 1,500 points down, this is going to be a tough battle to crawl back from in High Voltage. This is looking great for Noble. Noble picking up 2 kills, Heavy 20, and Anfield going down quickly, 1 right after the other. Not sure much High Voltage can do here as Noble's just going to pick off the rest of these tanks.
I mean, High Voltage didn't have a choice in that instance. They were down on time. They had to make a play. all their resets that they're taking out, they're fairly low on hit points, so they just went for it. Maybe they would get a mistake out of Noble, maybe they wouldn't. But that is the nature of being on offense versus defense. What's really interesting to me is the actual battle between Tofu Smurf and Commander J was just sort of an exercise in futility. Both of them had a lot of hit points, more hit points than the other one could do, because they both had only 4 shots left, so they couldn't kill each other. And they just kind of, drove up and shot each other. Commander J hitting more of his shots than Tofu, or at least that's what it looked like.
Yeah, a lot more damage done.
Although Tofu may have been shot by somebody else there while I was glancing at the mini-map. But either way, doesn't really matter. Just balanced play coming out from both sides.
Right.
Good play coming out from both sides. But in a perfect match in an assault and defense, defense will win. Because if both sides play perfectly,
defense, time will run out.
Then it stagnates.
Right.
And then defense just has the competitive advantage to begin with.
Sure.
We'll see how it keeps going. Interesting play. I think if High Voltage gets to roll off the 0 line in the north like they wanted to, it could be a very different game. I think they could develop a couple different ways of trying to get to that position anyways. In my mind, the western cap, unless you really know it's open and you can get a wedge to prevent defense from coming back, just isn't that great.
Sure.
As you saw, Noble they handled it.
Yep.
Plain and simple, they handled it.
Well, one thing I want to point out too is, like we were saying, if they would have gone, if High Voltage would have gone for that push on that 0 line right away, they took 2 minutes on top of that hill, and that 2 minutes then translates to the defense having an advantage. I guess if, again, like you said, it stagnates. So maybe they will, knowing that this time, maybe we'll see a more decisive push on that hill to go down to just burn that time, or instead of burning that time, taking advantage of that. But again, great job from Noble responding, even though it looked like High Voltage was, we know what's going on, we're going to wait, and it's very thought out and methodical. Noble just responded beautifully and ran that time until they had to make High Voltage eventually burn the time out and took the tanks down.
The biggest actually, we're getting ready to start this next battle, so we can save that for later.
Absolutely.
Get into lineups now.
Into Noble versus High Voltage in the second battle. Noble taking the first one down. High Voltage again on attack. David, what do we got for lineups?
High Voltage with 3 5100s, 3 IS3s, an AMX-12T. Noble with a 110, 2 5100s, 3 IS3s, and a T-37. Both teams running the same lineups from last time, and we'll see if they use them the same as they did before.
Looks like we're going to go ahead and see. It is looking like High Voltage is sending that decisive push, but not as many tanks this time going up the hill, as we have Noble again looking very similar. Comps heading out down toward the Zora Roads. Militant going to go ahead and push. Maybe a little more courtyard action over here from the side of Noble. But again, it looks like 3 tanks from High Voltage heading on that hill again. We'll see if they are a little more decisive this time.
This will be interesting. 3 IS3s going in the 8-line area. Or instead, actually, it seems like they're taking the long way to go on top of the hill.
The hill it is again.
Perhaps setting honestly, I have no idea what they're doing at this point in time. That is strong separation. Okay, they're holding the corner against a push that I don't see particularly likely to come. So my guess is that they are High Voltage down here with Ox, Mathis, Anfield, and Wall Hacks. My guess is they're waiting for comps in that T-37 to be a little bit over aggressive in his scouting or something, and then pick him off, because if they're actually waiting for heavy tanks to come, that's going to be a very long wait. And I don't think they're unrealistic enough to think that Noble's actually going to drive real tanks over there. Comps they could get, and that would be a huge pickup for them. High Voltage checking out the 0 line, probing for a place to come down from there, moving their IS-3s up the 8 line. This is going to be a classic off the hill and 8 line push. If they can find that window into Noble, they stand a chance, but Noble is ready and waiting for this.
Also,
they need to find a way to get him to rotate.
Yeah, and as we saw right there, Wk1 getting a lot of spots off on the team of Noble. So High Voltage knows what's happening. We're seeing those IS-3s running in. Wall Hacks, Anfield, and Ox Mathis pushing in on that 7 line. And over here in the corner, Tofu Smurf, Heavy 20, and Angry White Guy setting up here for what looks like is going to be a very push. But as you said, Noble are ready and waiting. They've got this northern cap locked down. This is going to be an interesting fight, because Noble should theoretically be in a better position here.
I don't know. Canadian Impact is really in a bad spot right now. He's going to be in essentially a 1-on-2 as Anfield and Woltage can start plinking him over here. And if they hit their shots, there's not much Noble can do to save him over time. And the best he can do is be as troll as possible and make this last a very long time. You can see with the laser sights on in the bottom left there. It's a very, very slim shot for everyone involved. But with 2 cannons on 1, it's not unrealistic to think that Canadian Impact is going to lose this battle. Dodoma flanking around, but Oxmath is going to stop him.
A little bit of damage coming out on Anfield there. As we said, it looks like those IS-3s just shooting at each other, but no damage coming out. A lot of bounces. Angry White Guy, though, back on this cap and causing the pressure just right on the other side of Canadian Impact. Akula sitting back, defending his teammate. We have Comps over there heading out from the courtyard coming in. Let's see if he can make a move as he's rushing kind of back and forth in Osmathis. Dodma is sitting back, watching Comps as he moves by. And that cap is ticking down. Not enough for Noble to react just yet, but when they do try to push on the other side, we have Heavy 20 and Tofu Smurf backing Angry White Guy quite nicely.
We got a strong play coming out from Noble now, grouping up their tanks, getting ready to push down the 5 line and into Oxmathis, who is virtually alone. And that should be a great pickup for them. They could immediately then isolate wall hacks, and this could be in the bag for Noble already.
Here we go. Like you said, they're going to go and isolate on Mathis, getting some good damage in. This is a 4v1. Let's see if High Voltage is going to respond. As they're going on to Canadian Impact, we have 2 battles going out from the other side. Who's going on first? Heavy 20 finds Canadian Impact, but Noble will respond by taking down Oxmathis. That's a 1-for-1 trade. Now Akula trying to back out of here as there's only 3 seconds left on this cap. Noble needs to get a reset. They do. 7, 6, 3 more seconds. I don't know if this will be good enough. Noble running in, trying to find Tofu. Wallhack's taking it down, but the cap is done. High Voltage has successfully assaulted the cap, and Noble just can't do enough to take this one in. A great play from High Voltage. Noble didn't react quick enough.
That was unexpected altogether. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if High Voltage knew exactly what they were doing there. Trying to coax out too many tanks coming down to Oxmathis, and then pivoting through the top. There are better positions that Noble could have been in the north to prevent that from happening. In particular, where which tank was it? The IS-3, where Canadian Impact was. I'm not a fan of that position at all. It is dicey, janky, risky. I mean, how many break out a thesaurus and just keep going? It is a weird place to be, and you're very easily isolated. Now, and when it was the 1-on-2, he actually did a lot better than I would have expected.
Shots are bounced like crazy.
He's doing a nice reverse angle there. But as soon as too many tanks, and particularly those 5100s, were spotted in the south, High Voltage brought their 5100s over the top, cleaned them up in an instant, and then from there, they just screened, stuffed their light tank in that corner, and capped with it. And that's, I mean, we can check out High Voltage's stats here. Angry White Guy in the AMX 12T. 77 capture points, right then and there. So that was their plan. That was it. You know, after seeing this in action, either it's what they came out with from the beginning, or a very smart adaptation. But that right there, the whole reason they didn't risk the 12T was to perform that cap maneuver. And if quite frankly, if they expected that, if they knew exactly what Noble's response was, which is a very reasonable response, a very classic response, that's a very meta, very genius play overall.
Well, I was going to say something that I wanted to point out was looking back, when those fights, as you said, Oxmathis was isolated, Noble was moving in to take him down. We thought that was going to be a great play. Oh, cool, they're going to take Oxmathis and be able to have an amazing push back into their northern cap to stop it. I myself wasn't even looking at the cap. I didn't even see the cap timer come out. All of a sudden, Oxmathis goes down, but you look up, 5 seconds left, and Noble just wasn't in the position to stop it. If you're Noble, and this is going to maybe happen again from High Voltage, that having that Angry White Guy just sitting on that corner, getting cap points the whole time. How do you stop that? Do you just rush around and try to get shots? Do you risk taking that much damage from Tofu Smurf and the other member from High Voltage who was backing him up?
Well, there's a very small window for Noble's T-37 to actually blitz up the 8 line and actually reset him from behind, but I think they were just too distracted with the bird in the hand, and they didn't recognize everything else that was going on the map. I mean, I certainly noticed it far too late to call like a team response. So that's a very smart move by Noble. And now it is 1-1, and sides have switched. High Voltage is on defense.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into our third battle. High Voltage versus Noble. Let's see what we got for tanks, David.
High Voltage has two 5100s, three IS3s, a T32 and a T37. Pretty classic defensive position. T32 can get into some windows and very common positions that we'll discuss a little bit later. Noble, three 5100s, three IS3s, and a T37. That seems to be the assaulting standard right now.
Yep.
Like everybody needs that sustained firepower from the 5100s, and that makes a lot of sense. You theoretically put three tanks, maybe 3.5 tanks down with that amount of damage if you hit them all and get some pretty good rolls.
Sure. Now we see, like we were saying, the push from Noble coming right up on this 8 line. As we see a lot of, we've been seeing on the first match against Elevate and Lamp, they did this quite nicely, making it across here. This is where it's decisive to see if Angry White Guy can get some good damage. For these IS3s, Militant, Canadian Impact, and Germ just as a single unit coming through, and Angry White Guy is around that corner. He's going to have to try to get around that to safety as Canadian Impact and Militant. Now a 2v1 coming through. Angry White Guy taking a lot of damage there. Needs to get around that corner as fast as he can, but he's pushed right into the middle of Command and J. What a beautiful pickup from Noble, as it seemed that was actually just clockwork, pushing Angry White Guy around that corner.
Great opener for Noble. Now they're getting ready in cap position. High Voltage making some serious mistakes here. They're in position to do damage. We've already seen this today. People in great position to do damage, and they have no vision to do it, which, if you're going to do that, you might as well just sit back and defend yourself. Those forward positions are useless if you're not getting the vision out to actually do damage with them. 2 people on cap for Noble, 40 points, 40 seconds left on the clock. German Militant stacked on that corner. Canadian Impact, the only thing to stop them from coming down the D line, and it's kicking off right now.
Absolutely, here we go. They're looking at the push from High Voltage. They know what they need to do. They got to do it quickly. With only 29 seconds left on the cap timer, we're going to see them coming back from the side. But Anfield and Blue Boys kind of out of position. They're going to have to rush back quickly if they're going to have any sort of response into this. Wallhack's coming through, trying to make it. Takes a damage before it gets around the corner. Topher's also getting a nice chunk of shot off. Alex Mathis missing the reset. 15 seconds left. Heavy 20 is going to have to speed right in here and get this reset if they have any hope of staying in this battle. Noble looks like they're setting up nice. 3 seconds now left. 2 seconds. When they get the reset, Heavy 20 just in time. But he's going to take a lot of damage in response. 666 to be exact. Now down below half, one more shot left. He goes down. Comps picks him up. The clock keeps on ticking down. 12 seconds left. High Voltage needing the pressure to be applied to Noble. Noble putting the pressure on themselves. Some good caps coming up, but Germ picking up these kills. Noble absolutely taking out High Voltage. 4 tanks remain. Over 2,000 points of health in Noble's favor here. Now Mathis coming around. Looks like they want to get more. They're going to go on a Canadian Impact. They're going to go on Germ. Oxmath taking tons of damage in response. Going to go and back up. He's on reload. Canadian Impact looks like he wants blood. They're popping out. They want to get the shots. Wallhack's going to take a chunk out. Oxmath is so low. Just barely doesn't get one shot on the reload. Now coming down this north side on the 0 line, we've got Dodamon getting Tofu Smurf, Canadian Impact, finding Wallhacks. Anfield is trying to respond, but this is not looking good for High Voltage. Not sure they can do much here as Dodamon picks up Bucks Mathis. One more tank remaining, and Anfield will get picked apart. Noble taking this 3rd game against High Voltage here. What decisive plays.
Wow, you know, that has all the trappings of a strategy gone wrong.
Okay. Explain.
So, Simp was in... That's Simp. High Voltage. Apologies. Many of them are ex-Simp. I'm going to make this mistake sometimes. High Voltage had some great positions. And, again, they just didn't capitalize on them. And then after that, Noble slipped past. And then the whole point of what High Voltage was doing was to make them pay for that.
And they just
if
got
they're going to slide up the 8 line like that, you want to pelt them with damage the whole way and then surround them when they get in the northeast. And now that they're low damage, you can just push in. And there's always kind of an introduction cost when you're coming around a corner where the enemy gets a shot off, and you expect that. So what they're trying to do, High Voltage, is get that cost out of the way, make it equal, so that when Noble's on that corner, they're already at half health or whatever.
A little more threatening.
High Voltage can take about as much hit points to get on them and actually duke it out. But they got put in a position where they had no good option, no good call to make. Heavy 20 with a very clutch reset, but he went down shortly thereafter. And it's not his fault. They shouldn't have been in that situation whatsoever. And I think there's definitely some room to use your light tanks a little bit more efficiently, running the kind of strategy that High Voltage is doing right now. But Noble showing it was very well put together. Militant, a guy who was previously on one of the teams that I ran, the team that I ran, it depends on how you look at it, as well as Dodoma. That's how
Dodoma.
Dodoma.
Gandorfro,
is how you
Dodoma, Arclit. Yeah, I'm getting these.
There you go. You just, it's like Like
and
just
Dorfo.
repeat them to yourself before you go to sleep.
Yeah, with a glass of milk. This is getting weird. Let's continue. I'm sorry. But the thing we were saying, I wanted to point out, like you said, if High Voltage's plan was to punish Noble when they moved in, it went not only did it go not as they planned, as they didn't get damage off, but they actually lost Angry White Guy for that. They actually lost a tank, so that went horribly wrong. How do you come back from that? If that happens and you set up for this, is there much you can do, or do you just run in and try to get the resets and hopefully your shots are better than theirs?
They probably would have been better off grouping everything up and just trying to push. There's no good answer to this. I mean, you want to say push across the courtyard and then fire down the line from the south, but all that'll happen there is Militant and his buddy will pull around the corner, and then they're protected, and it's even harder to reset. You just don't want to be in that situation. And this is why, clearly, we're seeing Noble congregate in the north right off the bat. They know they can push into the west and handle any counter push there. They're just trying to get strong positions, and I think there's some tweaking to do. Canadian Impact's position, like we talked about before. I mean, maybe they know it's bad, but it's just the best choice out of two bad options. I don't know.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's see. We're in our fourth and final battle for Himmelsdorf of High Voltage versus Noble. Let's get right into it. David, what do we got for the tanks?
High Voltage, 25100s, 3 IS-3s, a T-32, and an FV-304, a little artillery. That's going to be interesting. That'll certainly handle the issue of anybody sitting on the corner where we saw Militant, and I believe it was Akula with him, or perhaps Germ. Doesn't matter. Militant and whoever his buddy were there at the B7 corner, they could have very easily been reset by an FV-304, so that is a very strong adaptation to what they're doing now. Noble with 3 5100s, 3 IS-3s, T-30, and a T-37. It seems to be the assaulting standard, as we discussed before. They're already moving up the 8 line again. They're not paying too much of a price for it. I want to know what High Voltage is doing here. They're either going to secure the southwest for their artillery to consistently rip out damage and then collapse on it, but or they, I think honestly that's the only thing they can be doing right now. Noble taking up the 8 line. They're going to get superior position. That FE-304's got to do work, and they've got to protect him from comps coming down and just picking him off. In his little T-37, comps perhaps not in a great position to be getting out and doing it right now.
As you're talking about, taking a lot of damage, over half of his HP, getting around that corner, not doing anything in response. Wallach's taking a little bit of damage. But Noble and I will just, again, this little scratch back and forth, getting some nice shots, up on the hill there, Noble. And the cap looks like it was on for a second. Militant, there we go, getting back on the cap, applying the pressure. And so it begins. Let us see how High Voltage will react to this. Now, having an Arty for High Voltage in the position that Militant is capping, how is that going to come into play? How are we going to see him use that to benefit his team?
Well, it depends on where Oxmathis goes in that FE-304. Right now, he can't do anything. But if he gets all the way down in K6, he can easily hit Militant. Not only with a splash, just an HE explosion that will reset him, but he could penetrate him. But there's way more than that going out right now. Wall hacks and Heavy 20 in the courtyard itself. Yeah,
here we go, ladies and gentlemen. They're trying to push in. We have 2 IS-3s and an AO-5100 for Heavy 20 going through Canadian Impact and Comps. Looks like Comps, again, being extremely low, going to be in a bit of a trouble. They got to find their way out of here. They got to find their way out of here fast. But no, he does not. Heavy 20 punishes him for even stepping out into his line of sight. Canadian Impact knowing now, just going ahead nice and safely. His teammate dying just to his right. 48 seconds, though, on the cap for Noble. Again, nice Arty shot, and he gets the reset. A beautiful shot from Max Mathis there. That is that Arty play you're talking about, coming in right in that line, getting a beautiful head right into the northern cap.
Noble's making a little bit of a bad decision here. They're going for an isolation in the south, which I do not think is strong as the isolation they had in the north with only Anfield and Tofu Smurf and everybody else virtually out of position aside from perhaps Heavy 20. They're going to try and push into here. The biggest pickup they've had so far is taking out that T-37 to make sure Oxmathis and FE-304 was safe. They now no longer have any more options. They're going to try and take it to High Voltage, but High Voltage is collapsing from behind.
Absolutely.
And it's about to get real.
Let's look at this as Germ gets absolutely dominated. 1,000 points of damage going, and he goes down by Heavy 20. High Voltage picking up these kills beautifully. All the shots missing from Noble there, and an Arty shot coming in, not doing too much, but doing enough damage to make Dodoma go back, and he's stuck on this little corner. This is not looking good. We have Militant coming through. Dodoma goes down. Blue Impact can find him. Canadian Impact picking up Heavy 20 in a nice little response, but it's going to be 6 versus 4 here. High Voltage has a massive advantage, and they're just pushing Noble back, surrounding the Tofu Smurf going through. Commander does find Oxmathis, but over here by this cap, it's a 5-on-2, and High Voltage absolutely are in the driver's seat this time. Can Commander J and Akula going through the courtyard here, but it's not. Don't know if it's going to be enough. Woltage is one more shot away, but Canadian Impact should go down. There he is, Ampro. Commander going to come over, trying to find Woltage. He does get him, but takes a little bit of damage himself. It's a 2-on-4. High Voltage is still dominating in this fight.
My question is, why is Commander J at still full health? Why is he so late to this fight?
Sure.
That is just a long flank, and we saw that in the first game where he went all the way down the 8 line, and had High Voltage known at that point in time how far away from the rest of his team it was, that would have been easily in High Voltage's hands. It was a huge mistake. You don't want to do it. That's twice I've seen it so far, and that could have very well cost him this game, but I'm not going to pin it entirely on Jay's shoulders.
Sure.
I'm giving him a little credit. He often plays very well, shoots fantastically. His accuracy is typically great, but they played High Voltage's game there. The pickup of comps in the T-37 was hands down the most important thing out of that entire thing, to make sure their FE-304 was safe, which then guaranteed that they could reset. Big mistake from Noble, pushing into the south and allowing themselves to get enveloped. You're almost better off not doing anything.
Sure.
Not that that's a really good answer. But pushing across the north, I thought, was clearly the better option. You can do some reverse angling up there. And then not only are you getting an isolation, but you're putting on cap pressure, and High Voltage has to come to you.
Absolutely.
That was the play to make. You shouldn't have been in that situation to begin with, but I mean, nobody's perfect. It happens. When I say these things, it's not like, oh, you guys are bad for it. I'm just saying you should have had better positions, and you should have. I mean, just like you shouldn't get shot, right? And these are ideals.
Don't do it.
And they're not easy to achieve. Yeah. But great tie.
2-2.
2-2 on Himmelsdorf. Both sides successfully defending once and assaulting once. That is interesting.
It's like an even team.
I have to look at some of the stats out of that match, because that was interesting.
And while you're doing that, I always have a question about that, why they didn't go north and why they did push south. It could have been that High Voltage Noble didn't know that there was only 2 members in the north, or do you think they had a pretty clear picture that there was a better overmatch up there?
You know, that's a very good question. It's easy for me to forget, considering I can see everything all the time. But I'm fairly certain that Noble knew there were only 2. Well, they knew there were 2 tanks in the north, and they knew how many were in the courtyard, or at least they had a very good spot on them coming in. So, you know, they can reason it out over time. After going through the stats, apparently, actually, the biggest issue here is actually multiple problems for Noble. 0 damage out of one of their IS-3s, only 335 out of one of their 5100s.
Oh, wow.
Who gave himself away pretty easily. Commander J, I half apologize. You did 6 shots.
1,200 damage.
I think they were a little bit too late, and you're a little bit out of position. But, hey, it happens. Akula, great job. Nearly 3,000 damage in his 5100, making up for a lot of the mistakes. But that's the thing. It's a team game. Everybody makes mistakes sometimes. I've certainly made mine, and they add up. Ideally, when somebody makes a mistake, somebody else steps up. Akula put 1 person on his shoulders, but he wasn't able to carry 3, and there it goes. High Voltage takes that game.
And that'll do it for us. So 2-2, all tied up, coming to our next map, High Voltage versus Noble on Mines. This will be a very fun and aggressive one. We're going to be into this, ladies and gentlemen. So, David, what do we got for tanks right off the bat?
High Voltage, a 110, 5 T-54 lightweights, and an M44. Both sides running artilleries, actually.
Hey.
Noble, 3 IS-3s, 3 T-54s, and an M44. It's going to come down to whoever gets superior positions and just lets the M44s work.
Now, here's the beauty of Mines. It's the idea of you either take the hill or you punish your team for trying, or you punish the enemy for taking the hill. But it looks like High Voltage is just going to come up here with not a lot of response, actually no response from Noble. They now are in this position, and Noble looks like they did send a lot of these members to try to make sure that didn't happen as easily as it did.
Well, that's the advantage of what High Voltage is doing. They have 54 lightweights. They know they can get there faster than those IS-3s reliably. So they knew they weren't going to take too much damage. Now they have superior position. They can let Ox Mathis do some of his shooting in an M44. However, it's not entirely out for Noble. They have a lot of hit points with those IS-3s.
Sure. They're
hard to hit. Really, what needs to happen now for this to really come to fruition for High Voltage is they need to take the 1-2 line, the island area, to get some 90-degree angles to fire back and hit where those IS-3s and everybody are. But right now it looks like they're just sort of gathering some intel, trying to make the right decisions. Ox Mathis perhaps trying to counter battery Germ and his other artillery. In case some of you are new to World of Tanks, you don't know what I'm talking about when I say counter battery. That is when you are looking where the other artillery is and you attempt to shoot him with your artillery and counter him by killing him. Very simple.
Oh,
And
makes
artillery
sense.
is frequently called a battery or a battery of artillery, so this is where the term comes from.
And artillery being the little squares you guys see in the top and bottom of the mini-map there. Germ and Mathis are running those artilleries. Now, in this position, in this situation that they're in, where we have Noble kind of hugging this hill with the 3 IS-3s and the T-54, who is at a better advantage as far as having the artillery? Right now, who's the artillery benefiting the most, or if anyone at all?
Neither. Nobody's really getting a whole lot of damage out. Now, say if one side didn't have an artillery, then that's still even debatable. Sometimes the tank that you're bringing instead of artillery can do a good job of countering it, giving you a little bit more meat in a push, and you can get underneath the reload of an M44 or an artillery. What I mean by that is once you've seen an artillery fire, you can perform some sort of maneuver while he's reloading, and that's what I call, or what I've heard called several times, called getting under his reload, right?
Gotcha.
So before he can continuously help his teammates, you're taking advantage and putting like a 7-on-6 or something. But the way it stands right now, everybody's just looking for each other. High Voltage making that move. They've got Tofu Smurf and Heavy 20 down in the southwest. I expect Ox Mathis will soon move to the west side so he can start doing some damage. I think they're a little bit behind timetable. This is more what's happened in the past when you had a little bit more time to pull this off, but who knows? They may be able to get enough damage in about 2-3 minutes to pull that off. As we can see, Ox Mathis happily cruising through in utter safety in the west. Probably extremely excited that he's going to get to do some damage to some big tanks. So we'll see if he gets those angles, although we could probably go a little bit further south, but hey, angles are angles. Take them while you got them.
And like you said, a great job for High Voltage coming out here, getting that 90-degree shot into the team of Noble, taking that west side all the way down to the southern corner. And like you said, that safety that Ox Mathis knows, just he can just cruise on down that line, not being contested whatsoever because his teammates went out in front of him and made sure the waters were safe. As we see, Blue Boys just proxy spotting the 2 IS-3s down there, Akula and Canadian Impact, doing a good job there, just kind of keeping them at bay. But the time is running out. About 3 minutes remaining in this battle, so High Voltage is going to eventually have to make a move. Where do you expect that move to come from?
Okay, so this is how this map is played. IS-3s for Noble are starting to push a little bit east. They understand the risk. They know Ox Mathis is going to start shooting at them. Whether he's actually splashing near them or not, they know it's coming.
Sure.
People have seen this already. So the real person at risk is Dodoma. And he needs to find the exact moment that he wants to get out of there, and High Voltage needs to make sure he can't. Dodoma's actually slipping out right now, and this could be a huge mistake on High Voltage's part. They needed that tank in order to make sure they had a solid intro. They had him cut off. That's what owning the hill and owning the 5 line is all about, to lock anybody who is in the west or the east on their side and don't let them cross back. That's the whole point. Dodoma's now slipping away, happily in better positions.
Wow.
Noble perhaps gearing up to make a hill push?
Yeah, it looks like they're all moving as a single unit up here to maybe try to get the isolated tanks up on the hill. But Canadian Impact taking some damage as he moves on up, as Ampro already established up here. Also, 851, one more shot. It looks like Canadian Impact will go down, and he does. Ampro picks him up. Noble pushing on this hill, and hopefully it's going to be worth it as Ampro just dives off the side. Militant now not going to pursue it, turns around, going for this hill fight, and we've got a nice battle going on top of this mine. Anfield finds Akula, and this is going swimmingly for High Voltage as Noble just starts dropping left and right. Wallhack's coming up behind comps. Looks like he's going to take the shot. Dodoma finding Ox Mathis and that Artie over there. So that's an Artie down for High Voltage, but Anfield looks like they have, looks like he's going to go ahead and maintain this wall. This Wallhack's finding comps. This is going amazingly for High Voltage. Not quite sure why Noble decided to push up there. They lost it. There was no overmatch. Now High Voltage is going to come and clean this up.
Heavy 20 going in the back to take out Germ. One-on-one at M44. The M44 just fired, not holding his shot. That is going to be a problem for Germ, and he is gone by Heavy 20. Great play. Now it's just clean up. There's 1 minute and 10 seconds for High Voltage to spread, take out Commander J and Dodoma. Commander J going down to Blue Boys right now.
Absolutely. Dodoma also going down to Ant Pro. One more left. Blue Boys finding Commander J. He's going to go ahead. He's going to turn 15 seconds. Not sure he can take it. And that's going to be a victory for High Voltage on our first map of mines for this season. Now, explain to me, because it was also confusing to watch. You said that it looked like Noble had a great positioning. High Voltage didn't manage to cut off Dodoma while he was doing that push. He goes right up, but then they took their entire unit and forced him on the hill. Maybe, did they think they had an overmatch up there? They thought maybe it was going to go well for them, but, I mean, High Voltage reacted beautifully and just swarmed right behind him.
They certainly had an overmatch, and we've seen this happening in the other leagues and somewhat in qualifiers where people take that IS-3 push and they go on top of the hill, but they always take a lot of damage for it. I don't think they expected High Voltage to be in such great positions for it. Why they didn't, I'm not entirely sure. Either Dodoma was never lit, or somehow they didn't know that High Voltage was out there, or they expected High Voltage to be in the northeast, getting ready to pincher them from two sides, which is, I mean, possible, but not particularly likely. Those aren't great positions overall. And I guess they just thought they could push up and take down whoever was on the hill, but High Voltage was ready and waiting.
Oh, they were,
you know, they made a huge mistake by letting Dodoma slip through, although I suppose they were probably backed off more due to the M44 germ. The standard positions I'm thinking of probably would have been a big risk just to try and isolate one tank. So maybe they probably knew what they were doing there, but I don't think anyone expected, especially High Voltage, that they were just going to come up like that. High Voltage was probably like, oh, how do we figure this out now?
Oh, look, they're
we're going to make
to us.
We'll proc over here and see if we can maybe guess at what they're coming.
Yeah,
really,
that's
and then
fair,
rip. I mean, just rip-arinos
really quickly.
That is a drastic mistake on Noble's part. You're on defense. There's no need to make that play. Now, perhaps they know something that I don't know, and they knew that they had to make that play. If that's the case, I welcome you guys to explain it to me so that I can parlay it to everybody else here, because I want to know what was going through your mind in that instance. Now, mistakes are made. It happens. But if that wasn't one of them, I don't know what's real in this world anymore, Christian.
Well, we will see if we can maintain that reality in this next match coming up. Ladies and gentlemen, we're into it. High Voltage and Noble on mines again. High Voltage still attacking, Noble on the defense. Let's get into those lineups and see what we got.
High Voltage with 1-1-10, 5 T-54 lightweights, and an M44. Noble, again, with 3 IS-3s, 3 T-54 lightweights, and an M44. So, very similar or same lineups as last time, depending on which side you're looking at. And we'll see exactly how High Voltage wants to play this one. Money bets they're going to do the same thing, because there's not a whole lot. I mean, there's only a handful of things you can really do from on mines, but it all comes down to the finesse of what you do once you see what the other team is doing. Noble's the one that's really got to break out something special here, or perhaps do what they did last time, but not make such a huge mistake.
We got a deja vu here as Militant takes more damage actually than before, while also not giving any, just like in last round. High Voltage taking the hill, a very similar startup. The IS-3 is coming through in the same positions they were last time. Tofu Smurf pushed on the lighthouse over on the west side. And like you said, it seems as if it's just gonna play out almost identically. What does Noble now have to do? I mean, now if this does play out as it did in the last match, Noble, you know, perhaps just won't make that push as they did last time.
I mean, they really shouldn't. Now, here's a big problem with what's going on right now. Okay, never mind. He's protecting himself fairly well. I've been watching Germ and his M44. He's using some extremely predictable positions with an artillery, and that can result in either blind fire coming off the hill or a strong counter battery from Oxmathis. But I don't think Oxmathis is looking right now. Obviously, in the beginning of that match, High Voltage made some micro adjustments to their positions, able to connect a lot with Militant right off the bat. That is a strong opener they've taken. It cost them nothing.
Okay, right.
And they dropped at least 30% off Militant. Right now, Germ just trying to squeak in some shots. Oxmathis wouldn't be a bad idea to be hunting for him right now. However, it's not the biggest concern in the world. The M44 is there to do a little bit of damage while you're trying to sit still. But it's not intended to be game-breaking. Artillery doesn't do that so much anymore. Shot out from Germ. Doesn't look like it. Where Oxmathis with a counter battery.
Wow, what an amazing shot. Just like we're talking, and that is it in play. An Artie taking down another Artie from across the map. A beautiful pickup from Oxmathis onto Germ. That was amazing.
That's what we were talking about. It's a very predictable position. The reason I expected that to be coming was because of last match. Heavy 20 got to go back there and see where Germ was. And when you see that position, when you know the game as well as these guys do, you're like, oh, well, if he's going to sit there and he's not somewhere else, we can bully him into a spot with blind fire.
Wow. And
then wait with Oxmathis and just click him. It's the instant we see a tracer come out of that area, we're going to drop a bomb on him. That's a huge advantage. Oxmathis taking down Germ, and we'll see if High Voltage can exploit that advantage and their hit point gap to take home a win on this one again.
Yeah, I mean, with an Artie down on the side of Noble. That being something that you bring into a battle, forfeiting the hit points for the damage and the range, and that going down without doing any damage is a huge detriment on the side of Noble. Canadian Impact taking a little bit of damage there on the hill as he's backing back on the IS-3. Blue Boys again, just sitting there, proxy spotting comps down below him. As we see Ognathus and Tofu Smurf doing something a little differently. They're going to go ahead and move away from that west one-line push and head into the town, it seems. Is this going to benefit them, where Mathis is getting set up to launch into the fire for the eastern cap?
This is something that we used to do on our team, on Mines all the time. This is classic intelligence Mines play. So now that they have seen, and they did this through proxy spotting and through sensing being spotted themselves. So they probe the 1-2. They know that at least one light tank is there. That is enough to take everything else you've got and dump it down the 8-9 and take out where Militant is in that position. This is something I've always loved to do myself. They'll take a little bit of crossfire as they go, but here we go, rolling in. Militant 83 in their sights.
Wallhack's going to take a little bit of damage. They're running through. They're trying to overmatch this battle against Noble as they're just going right through the base. Comps getting a good bit of damage on Heavy 20, but Blue Boys Captain picking up that on Militant, and that's another tank down for Noble. Tofu Smurf. Now we've got the IS-3s just surrounded here. Blue Boys Captain on top. They're worried about all around them. Dodoma gonna move, and Commander J coming back in to try to help their team, but it's just a massive advantage here for High Voltage. Some good damage coming down on comms. Wallhacks and Heavy 20 also getting very low. Heavy 20 about one more shot. He's gonna have to back out of there. Getting some good damage on comms, but a lot of bounces or missed shots on these IS-3s coming through, which is good for Noble. And Dodoma coming on through. Dodoma picking up Heavy 20 from the back. He's in the middle of anyone. Canadian turns on Wallhacks, and this is an absolute bloodbath. Dodoma driving through, getting lots of damage, finally going down from Tofu Smurf. But Tofu Smurf one shot himself. Anfield, or Akula will pick up Tofu Smurf and Anfield, taking comps down. Noble turning this around and turning it on. A 3-on-4. Commander J and Antpro going against it, but Commander J taking so much damage. One more shot. Antpro will take him down, and now it's a 4-on-2. They're just going to come back. They're going to clean this up. Noble just trying to hold on. Blue Boys going down. It looked like for a moment it was turning, but just not enough. A well planned out attack from High Voltage there. Akula, the final one on the chopping block, as they're going to go down. Blue Boys taking some gravity damage there. Not enough to sway this victory, and Akula will go down. High Voltage picking up a 4th victory against Noble here on Mines.
Fantastic. I've been waiting so long to see a team demonstrate proper control over Mines, the way you're supposed to do it. Classic. I love it. I love it. That's exactly how it should be done. Now, several mistakes from Noble's part there. Now, it's a common thing in esports where people will say that nobody ever makes a great play. The enemy team just makes a mistake.
Okay. I've heard you say that.
I mean, apples to apples. It's the same thing. You making a great play, taking advantage of somebody else's mistake, or forcing them to make a mistake. Right. I don't care. Great play and mistakes simultaneously happening here. Oxmath is even chipping in some damage there at the end. I don't know if you saw it. Squeak over the hill. I was actually looking at his position. Shot. I was like, why aren't you just coming in for a cheeky tank destroyer shot right now? Because that would be hilarious, right? But he had some good angles. And I'm not familiar enough with the M44's firing angles on that map. Apparently, because he was
beautifully.
Let's actually check out the stats and see how much damage he did in that thing. Okay. I mean, not a lot. 7 shots, 2 hits, 2 penetrations for a grand total of 944. A good chunk of that being Germ.
Right, that's
and it is 44, which, I mean, huge contribution there. Yeah. You killed the tank, even if you did a little bit less damage. But Ant, 2,000 damage in his T-54 lightweight. Wow. Look at that. That is huge. 13 shots, 11 hits, 9 penetrations. Considering several of those are going to be on the move as you're going places, that is a very respectable hit rate, very respectable penetration rate. He almost had a one-on-one with Commander J in the air, and he got a little bit of help. But either way, it looked like he was calm and in control. Anfield coming off big boss off the hill, knowing full well. And that is a situation where a lot of players would be afraid. Okay. Like, well, when I come down that hill and try and help you guys, I'm going to take a lot of damage.
Sure.
Anfield understands. Now, I think he understands at least. For all I know, Wallhacks, the caller for that team, could just be yelling at him, Anfield, come down, Anfield, come down. And he's crying and gripping his mouse. I'm sorry, Anfield. I know him pretty well. I'm allowed to say that kind of stuff.
Good.
So he came down in a very aggressive move, very smart move. And he knows, well, if they're shooting me, they're not shooting my teammates, which means we're going to win either way.
Right.
And that's classic trades. Yeah. That's how you do it. Very smart. I think we're getting ready to start yet another battle.
Absolutely.
With High Voltage up 4-2, if I remember correctly.
Just one more.
Now on defense on Mines, all they have to do is bring home one more This is not a good position for Noble to be in.
Let's see if they can go ahead and actually flip the tables on this battle, ladies and gentlemen. We're into our last, or not our final battle, but final battle of High Voltage takes it 4-2 on mines. Like you said, High Voltage on defense, Noble on the attack. David, what do we got for our tanks?
High Voltage, they're actually getting rid of artillery, bringing a T-37 to counter the artillery, or perhaps just get a little bit of additional vision. Wouldn't surprise me if they go hill with this. Well, I'll get it out quick. 1-1-10, 5 T-54 lightweights, T-37. The enemy team, Noble, go with 2 IS-3s, 4 T-54 lightweights, and M44. Hill play coming out, at least to stop them, perhaps not all the way up. We will find out shortly.
Absolutely. Looks like they're just going to go ahead and post up here against the rocks, getting some good damage as High Voltage is going to go ahead and try and take that hill. Like you said, the goal of that push that Noble is doing, stopping, not going and dying for the hill, but punishing High Voltage for taking it. They did a good job getting some nice damage on Heavy 20 wall hacks there. Not a lot in return. High Voltage a little bit lacking on the health now. Noble just up about 100. But that was a good play for Noble, not sacrificing a lot and getting some good damage as High Voltage took that hill. Some damage shots coming off with the Angry White Guy looping around. Looks like he's going down to the south, maybe heading to the west here.
He is indeed. He will get over and probably into the H1 area at the very least, perhaps moving up G1, F1, just making sure that nothing can get that western angle and shoot them from the side. That is a critical threat when you're on the top of the hill. Right now, High Voltage needs to do next to nothing. This is what we used to do all the time, even though the format was differently. If you take the hill when you're in the south, there is so little the north can do.
Gotcha.
Now, it's not hard to take the hill from the north. In fact, arguably it's easier.
Okay.
But with the lineup that Noble brought, unlikely. With 2 IS-3s, you just don't have enough you don't have enough speed to take the hill against High Voltage. But they did do quite a large bit of damage to them. But really only about a 400 hit point damage or difference here in the end, with the Doma taking several shots. But I'm very interested to see how Noble will try and dig their way out of this. It's not a good position to be in. Not a whole lot of options to do aside from just balling up and going right over the middle there and taking out Blue Boys and Tofu Smurf before the rest of your team can help. But in order to do that, they need to have proper intelligence to see that, you know, perhaps Wallhack's tank isn't turned around or Heavy 20 is out of position, but that is not the case. Heavy 20 is in proper position. Mill is in 83, and he exchanging some fire there.
Absolutely. And like you were saying, High Voltage is just doing exactly that, staying still, not making a play, letting Noble come to them. Looking at Jerb in the back with the Doma back there in the Arty, we need to get some, for an Arty to be effective, right, there needs to be information coming out. We just don't have a lot of information coming out from Noble onto High Voltage here. Wallhack's in a nice position behind this wall. Canadian Impact pressing up and getting a good amount of damage in response. Blue Boys captain and Topher Surf behind that rock. I've heard the rock referred to as the rock that the Kings go to die on, but they're doing just fine back there as Comps, Akula, and Canadian Impact just backing off back and forth. We're going to see Militant coming back around, not pushing the hill, just kind of sitting back against, again, that B2 line. Angry White Guy against H1 like you were talking about, just sitting back in Anfield, way in the back by K5. Now, what is Anfield's position right now? What is his job?
So let me actually zoom out to where Anfield is. We can get the camera over to that. So as you can see, as we get that on camera for you guys, Anfield is actually backing up what we see there in the middle of Blue Boys and Tofu Smurf. And while it is a little bit tricky to see from where we are right now, I can perhaps zoom in. Not nearly enough. It's a long shot, but he's backing up Tofu Smurf and Blue Boys in the event that they get pushed on. And he is so far back, it's very hard for him to take damage. So it's just sort of a safety net, making sure nobody comes up and over and tries to immediately isolate him. They would take damage from wall hacks and Heavy 20 as they crossed over that midline. The way that High Voltage is set up right now is virtually impossible to assault unless you have a strong mistake made. The best thing you can do is actually take several tanks into the 1-2 and push it. However, you got to make sure the Canadian Impact and Comps are already backed up all the way back to C4 to pull that off, because otherwise they're going to get swamped. And so far, Noble definitely trying to make a move on the 1-2, but not enough retreat from Canadian Impact and Comps. They're still at risk. Dodoma can't help them. Commander J can't help them. If they get swarmed enough, that'll be too big of an HP trade for what they get. And I'm not entirely sure what Noble is trying to pull off right now.
This is not looking for Noble at all. Again, 2 minutes and 30 left on the clock. High Voltage being the defenders, just have to sit back and wait for Noble to make a play. Noble seeing a bit indecisive, hoping maybe that High Voltage was going to do something, but High Woltage is just sitting strong, holding that hill, holding their positions. Anfield, like you said, in the back, even some good cover. We have a little bit of damage being traded up on top, but not enough to really act on. Noble needs to find out what to do, and they need to do it quickly because 2 minutes remain on the clock.
You can see here, Comps and Canadian Impact have a great position from the front. Blue Boys and Anfield can't do a whole lot to them, but if we just pivot this around really quickly, there is a cliff above them where any 54 lightweight can get in with a slight angle and actually shoot them from behind.
Gonna have to interrupt you here. We have a lot of damage coming out. This takes down Commander and Comps killing actually Dodoma, which is not looking good for Noble at all. Milton pushing on the hill there, taking a lot of damage and going down from Ice Mathis. Blue Boys captain just getting 370 damage in response, but High Woltage cleaning up Noble here on that push. They decided what to do, but it does not look good for them. Comps being one more shot away. Anfield looks like he's gonna try to ram him as he's running up, not gonna get it. Tofu Smurf takes that away from him. 2 remain for Noble, and High Woltage is just gonna clean this up.
That was pretty much what I expected.
That was it.
I mean, I hate to be anticlimactic about it, but they lost that battle as soon as they gave the hill up, and they didn't have a strong counter for it. You need to, in that instance, it's not uncommon for teams to go, well, High Woltage have enough T-54s.
Yeah.
That they can take hill, and they seem to be an aggressive type of team that will take hill. Now, it's a big gamble to assume that the enemy will take hill, and you just let them have it. But if you can make them pay on the way up while simultaneously taking the 1-2, then you can actually get some strategic value out of that.
Sure.
What am I doing? Congratulations, High Woltage. 5-2 against Noble. That is not a small victory by any means.
Yeah, and I was right. This will not happen much against this pro over here, but I'm going to just soak this up as I can. Ha 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 ha. Again, congratulations, High Woltage. That was a beautiful play. Controlling the map on that second mines, just really dictating the battles. Amazing gap. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for our third match. We have one final match coming up after this, which is going to be Team Rival versus #RU. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.